Does anyone know why we use 3 shantis? Did you ever notice that? There was always 3 shantis at the end.
I think it's based on the 3 worlds: physical, the mental, and the
Yeah.
causal.
Close. The first shanti is, see, when we come here, then you may be enthusiastic about this knowledge, but what the student or the listener doesn't know is they're still subject to ideas which have already been bought in the spiritual marketplace by the society and through different forms of conditioning. And these ideas can be like obstructions, and these obstructions unknowingly will block or color or misinterpret the teachings that are being told. So the first shanti is addressing or asking, please help me to have an open mind and open heart so that I may receive the teachings and so that the original message hits home exactly by the time it arrives in my understanding. The second shanti is environmental factors. So what this means is, even though I may be enthusiastic and willing to attend, sometimes an environmental factor like the weather, the illness of the body, somebody needs your help, somebody's sick, or a flood in a different country, or something that prevents us, or a car breaks down, from attending something that's important to us. So here we're asking, please keep me and remove the obstacles which could potentially stop my attendance from what is important for me. And the third shanti is, even though you're enthused and willing, and the environment's fine, the room temperature's fine, and there's no cars outside, and there's no noise, and everything's fine, we have something called universal factors. And universal factors means that there is something that is beyond my awareness in this moment that I may not know about, and it is the cause for me not getting it. So you may be willing, you may be comfortable, but the message, as told, it doesn't get registered, it doesn't get interpreted in the right way, so it just sort of misses it out. So that is why it's important to reiterate and rehear the message over and over again, because what one may have missed previously, they have gotten the next time. And this journey of revision and reiteration of Vedanta, of self-knowledge, it doesn't end. Because, as I said before, ignorance is so hardwired that even though I may think I got it, 5 years from now, if you look back, you go, I thought I got it and I was totally certain about it, but now that I've gotten 5 years more knowledge worth, I realized it wasn't quite the complete picture. So these universal forces are being asked to be, to be removed when we say the third shanti. And before we begin the Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 selected verses, I want to talk about quickly the principle of learning. See, we're never taught basically how to learn. So the reason I'll mention this is because the more you remember, the more this sticks, the better it is for you, because by day-to-day application of whatever you're doing, if it's staying there and you're able to remember it, it's sort of like being chewed on for a lot. And the more you chew on this knowledge, the more it converts, the more you sort of embody, the more it becomes the reality. So in relation to the teaching, I encourage you, if you may or may not, it's up to you, to do a few more modalities of learning. We have, for example, it depends if you're a visual learner, an auditory learner, or a kinesthetic learner. For example, visual learners prefer charts and mind maps, which we will have. Auditory learners prefer to hear the sound and audiobooks and to have discussions. And kinesthetical learners prefer to sort of do things, get involved. Like we have arts and crafts and these kind of, and even living this knowledge as an expression in your day-to-day life, that's a kinesthetical action too. So think about in what ways can you use the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic when you listen to this, because it benefits you a lot. And just a little demonstration is, here we have a diagram which represents the amount of information that we remember when we read is only 20%. That means 80% just is a waste. That means you wasted 80% of your time when you read, and only 20% of that has gone into effect. 30% of what we hear, 40% of what we see, 50% of what we say, 60% of what we do, and 90% of what we say, what we see, and hear and do. Okay? So just keep this in mind, because like when I'm in classes, you always see me with always my pencil, my Apple Pencil, and always writing notes, because that's engaging the kinesthetical mode. It's engaging the brain. I can choose colors, and then that's also engaging the mind, and then say it out loud, take the notes down, and then go home and then say it out loud. It's a lot more memorable than if you just internally verbalize it. So all of these tips you can begin to think about as to how to integrate and have this become and stick for a lot longer. And it just becomes a day-to-day, becomes your life. It's just the way make learning fun. So that's this little reminder. Okay, I'm glad you're here, because today we're going to talk about an extremely complex topic, but we'll take it very slow and step by step, and it's on Maya. How Maya operates, and ultimately the conclusion is the word I, when you say I, is not the doer. So you'll notice in your language, you'll say things like I went, I said, I think, I eat, I drive, I like, I don't like. So all of these verbs, they follow this primary principle, I. And it seems that this I is the one that does the verb, implying what? That this I is the doer. And you observe this is normal. This is so normal. You're like, what's the big deal? Like, why are you saying something that is accepted as the norm? Well, that's the problem. Ignorance is so widespread that we all associate the I to the doer. I think, I do, I go, so on. So in this session and following, we will come to the conclusion that this I that you speak of is not the doer. You're not the thinker. You're not the one that's confused. You're not the one that's doing. You're not the one that's not doing. You are doing nothing. Ishvara is doing everything. You are being done. Now, who is this you that's being done in this statement? The body, the mind. But who's aware that this doing is being done? Well, consciousness, satya. Okay? So in this realm, this is once again the Ishvara realm, including the jiva, including the action, including the no action, including the silence, including the thought, including the absence of thought. All of that is still mithya. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind as we go through the teaching. Let's begin. The self, this is chapter 5, Bhagavad Gita, verse 13. The self meaning awareness, self-existence, is not a doer. Ishvara is a doer. Moksha means I am not the doer. Freedom from the doer. That's what enlightenment means. I am free. It's a direct understanding. I am free. I am not doing. If you think you're doing, that's still not full moksha. Okay? Now, that's an introductory statement. Now let's arrive to that conclusion by the teaching. So I said earlier that since in the previous sessions we have established that the self is I, that's the real I. When you say I, that's the self. But now it's saying the self is not the doer, which contradicts when a person says I go, I do, I went, I kiss, I date, I divorce, I marry. So there's a direct contradiction there. Why? Because this I is still mistakenly linked to the body and the mind. So therefore, since the mind and the body is always what it's doing, that's obvious, it's even sitting now on the chair, that's a doing, there's a natural tendency, understandably so, to say, well, it's I am sitting. Huh? You see that? You see that that it's a trick that Maya plays on you. You say, well, I am listening because, why? Because it's the mind and the body that's linked to this I. So therefore we keep saying I, and then whatever action or no action the body does. And then we associate the two together. So we have to disassociate them, because moksha is freedom from the doer. Remember? The jiva, the doer, the sense of I do, that has to go completely. It's an understanding, and we got to arrive to that. Okay. When the indweller is self-controlled and indifferent to the results of its actions, it lives happily in the body, neither acting or causing others to act. Now, who's the indweller here? The indweller is the wise one, the jnani, realized one, that knows the truth of this statement, that knows that I am not the doer. So this is a direct, quote, experience or thinking for that one, which is the indweller is self-controlled, meaning their mind and their senses are not projecting, or they're not attracted to objects. It's the attention has gone inwards, back to the self, attention on the self. So when the indweller is self-controlled and indifferent to the results of its actions, it means that whether something bad or, quote, good happens to me, it doesn't affect me, because I know it happened to this body, mind, it didn't happen to me. Yeah? It happened to the life that this body and mind is engaged in, which is mithya, but it hasn't happened to me, capital M-E, meaning awareness, self-existence, that which is conscious of what has happened. It lives happily in the body, neither acting or causing others to act. So a normal worldly person says, I drive, but here it says the indweller, that is the wise one, is not acting. Now, how is this possible? Well, let's just put, they know the body and the mind is moving, listening, driving, eating, discussing, arguing, but the knowledge is that is not me. That is mithya. Okay? Or causing others to act. Now think about this. Oh, I disturb them. I cause them to have an emotional reaction. Oh, I'm, you know, this whole I'm sorry thing, like, oh, I'm sorry I hurt you, or I should have not said that. Or now you can probably stop saying that, but don't, because it's just a way of communicating to worldly people. So the indweller, see, the self cannot do anything. The self needs Maya for things to be done. Okay? So that means that I am not the one that's causing you to listen, and you're not the one that's causing the car to drive or the food to go in your mouth or to chew your food. What's causing that? Ishvara. Okay? So that's what it means, neither acting or causing others to act. So you never ever have any cause on another person, because everything's mithya, and mithya is entirely, it's Ishvara. It's the intelligence that's moving and coordinating and navigating all things to happen. And you're that which is aware of that, not the actual intelligence, even though you know about intelligence. Because remember, mithya and satya, they're not separate. Okay? Just because there's a line there, it doesn't mean they're separate. They're intertwined. And we're going to get to this, what it actually means, because I know you heard this before, but to understand it is a different story. So I'm going to explain what it means that mithya and satya, what is real and what is unreal, they're not separate. Okay, they're together. That's why it's so hard to get this, because the one that's trying to get it is both the real and the unreal, so they're confused. Like, am I this or am I that? And it's just a constant paradox here. Okay, let's put a pause on this.
So Isvara is not real.
What's not real?
Isvara?
Ishvara is not real, because Ishvara changes all the time. Yeah, but what is real, it's always the same. It never changes.
Sorry. I mentioned that before, sorry.
Yeah?
Ishvara isn't another name for awareness of existence. It's somewhere in
Yes, it is. We distinguish it. We call... See, it's a confusing part. In India, they always confuse. They call Ishvara both self and mithya, satya and mithya. But we call self Ishvara 1 and mithya Ishvara 2. But instead of me just going on 1 and 2, I just call self and I call mithya, or satya and mithya.
And when people talk about God, do they normally talk about 1 and 2? Is it 1 and 2?
It depends. See, you will never know that because we don't know what they know. Yeah, that's the tricky part. Only the one that says that will know. If a normal worldly person talks about God, 99.9% predictable, it's mithya. Because nobody teaches about these two orders of reality.
Or the cause of body.
Or the cause. Well, cause of body is also mithya.
Yes.
So when they talk about God, they're talking about the principle which animates the whole show, including the one that's listening and scratching their head and thinking and not thinking. All of that is just possible because of mithya.
I've got a question. I want to ask about the concept of will. I mean, the difference between the central intelligence of Ishvara 2 and Ishvara 1.
Yeah.
So if Ishvara 2 is very, the intelligence that moves around and influences actions in many different cases, what about Ishvara 1, where you think you have will or free will, and you make your own choices and how circumstances shape around that. So you are creating in that way, aren't you? Like, you're not just like a sheep or a lamb just going through Ishvara 2's, intelligent design. You're also shaping and creating reality with your actions.
Okay, depends. Sure, depends on what is the you pointing. Is you in that context satya or mithya? Okay, if it's okay.
It could be, yeah.
Okay.
That's the
Okay, I'll take it as mithya. If you were referring to mithya, then the answer would be yes, because both the jiva, that's the entity, and Ishvara, they're in the same orders of reality. You see that? So Ishvara affects the jiva, and jiva affects Ishvara 2. So once again, Ishvara 2 affects or influences the jiva, and jiva influences Ishvara 2. Why? Because they're in the same orders of reality. So okay, so this is a statement. So where's the proof of this? Show me the proof. Okay. That means simply this. When you do something, you will get a result according to what you've done. If I take a gun and put it to someone's head, they're gonna respond. Now that one which is responding is Ishvara. So I am influencing Ishvara through my action. Okay, so we're both, but Ishvara is also influencing the jiva through thousands of variables, including the weather, illness, clarity, sati, the three gunas. Okay, so we're in constant. See, it's one and the same. Okay, I'm going to use later on, not in this session, Chandogya Upanishad chapter 6. I'm going to go through that, and you guys will see through a metaphor we use through the pot and the clay. And that's going to make it so clear it's going to remove all doubts as to how is it possible that on one hand I say Satya and Mithya are not separate, but on the other hand I say one's real and one's unreal. And that's a contradiction. So we have to bring that to clarity. One way to explain it right now actually is think about the air in this room. Okay? This air in general or even outside consists of 78% nitrogen, 20.95% oxygen, 0.93 argon, and 0.04 carbon dioxide. That's the constituents of air that you're breathing right now. Okay, that is not going to change. So you go out there, you're still breathing the same constituents. You breathe the air here, you're still breathing the same constituents. Now, what happens when I put out like a rotten piece of ham and it starts to permeate the air? Okay? Does that mean that those constituents have been manipulated or changed? No. Why not? Because that smell is, for example, methane. So all that's being done is another form, which is mithya, has been added and intermixed with air, in this example being satya, so they're one and the same now. And it's very hard to discern, like, is this air? It smells. Is this real? Is this unreal? Well, it's both real and unreal to say. They're never, see, satya and they're never separate.
It's like a transformed new form of, it's like a transformed new unique thing coming out after you introduce the rotten ham.
Yeah. That's a metaphor for mithya, which permeates satya, and then you're unaware of which one is satya and mithya because, well, I'm breathing still, but now there's a smell, and then I'm trying to figure out what's clean air and what is not air. Okay, so you see, this is not an experience. You can't. What's the use of an experience? This is an understanding, and this is not an intellectual. It sure looks like intellectual, or it feels like intellectual at the start, but as you start to think about these statements that we teach you, then you start to understand, okay, well, this is just the way it is. The satya and mithya are together. They're inseparable. That's what Advaita means. They're not two. Okay, so it's an understanding, and the understanding through course of time becomes your direct, quote, experience in the form of knowledge. That's what moksha is. Okay? Okay, now let's move on to the next statement. The self, we're on the bottom here. The self, meaning what? Satya, in this example, which you. The self does not create a sense of doership. Doership is what? The actor. The actor, the acted, and the acted out. Which is what? It's all mithya. So we're now saying the self, I mean, we said this at the beginning, the self is not a doer, now we're just repeating it. The self does not create a sense of doership. That means what? You are not in control of your life. Okay, you're not you're not causing the circumstances to happen. Nor is it directly or indirectly responsible for the results of your actions. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, let's take, for example, that means whatever happens in the world, there's this idea, well, if all there is satya, Brahman, consciousness, then, and I understand that Brahman is not capable of the world, it needs a power to create, which is Maya. So therefore, it's naturally to conclude that it cannot be Brahman or awareness that is directly responsible for the world. Are we on the same page? Why? Because Brahman is consciousness, and consciousness cannot create. It needs Maya to create. We've been talking about it forever. So it's reasonable to assume or to say that the self is not directly responsible for the world, including the actions and this body sitting on this chair, because it's part of the world. Okay, now there's a doubt, and the doubt is, well, Andre, that's not really true, because since the world is from Maya, and Maya is of consciousness, then consciousness has to be indirectly responsible for the world, including your actions. Okay? So that's an objection. But here it says that's not true. So how do we now come to this conclusion? Okay, let's do this. Pay attention, it's important to understand. When you dream, okay? Let's just take worldly example. There is you, in this example, meaning the body and the mind. There is you lying down on the bed, and there is a dream. So the one that's lying down on the bed is the dreamer, and the dreamer is having a dream. On the same page? Dreamer is having a dream. Now, the dreamer in this example is a metaphor synonymous with self, consciousness. The dream, that is the story, the theme, the expression, the life, is synonymous with mithya. Okay? And what, okay, so first of all, who knows that this dream is going on? How is it later on you're able to report this dream? When you wake up, how is it that you're able to say, I had a dream? Does that not imply that you were there? Otherwise, how would you say, I had a dream, unless you were there? And how would you say, I had a lovely, beautiful, rejuvenating sleep? Is that not what we say? How would, this is not dream, right? We all go to bed to sleep, we don't go to dream. How would you say that unless there was somebody there to report in this state, the waking state, that the sleep was indeed lovely and nourishing and, rejuvenating? Unless there was somebody there. Now, who is this somebody? Consciousness. You.
Oh. What about inference? We think normally we infer that we've got a good sleep.
Okay.
Going to blank and wake up feeling good.
Okay. Yes, we can infer it, but why do you prepare your sheets and make the bed all comfortable? Do you do that for the dream, to have a wonderful dream?
No.
Or you do that because you want a good sleep?
Sure, good sleep.
See, you know that you want a good sleep. And to do that, you prepare the good bed. So therefore, there is an inherent knowledge that there is a body that wants to be in a rest, in a good sleep. So later on, we say, well, I had a wonderful deep sleep, a deep rest. Why? Because there was there was a knowing through that deep sleep, amidst that deep sleep, to be able to report back later and say, my sleep, I was at a miserable sleep. I just didn't rest at all. So that we always know about this, don't we? We always, how else are you able to report that unless there had to be some principle to be able to, that had quote, evaluated the quality of the deep sleep to later on report and say I had a good or a not so good deep sleep. Okay. Let's get back to the dreamer. So there is a dreamer dreaming the dream. Now, let's say the dream is one where there's murder. There's murder in the dream. Now, you wake up and you say what? You go to the police station and you say, I've murdered somebody. I want to report I'm guilty. And they say, okay, when did this happen? And you say, last night. And where did this happen? They ask you, and then you say, in my dream. They're like, well, I'm sorry, but that happened in your dream. That didn't happen. You didn't do that. Well, I did. I was there. I was in the dream, and I murdered somebody. And they just don't buy your idea. So I'm sorry. We can only get you. We can only arrest you if you killed somebody in this world. So, were you, the dreamer, responsible for that murder? Did you actually, did you, the dreamer, as the dreamer, did you murder?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, as the dreamer.
Well, where did the dream come from? Did you create the dream, or the dream just popped up when you fell asleep? Did you say, I think I'm going to dream now, and then the dream appeared? Or you just closed your eyes and then the dream just appeared?
Just appeared once you can infer that it came from your day.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay, so of course now the dream is a mixture of both our own vasanas and also a mixture of just the circumstances of the world. That's where you limit the example. But you, as the one that was sleeping in the bed, is that one responsible for the murder in the dream? Okay? No. So who's responsible then?
Universe.
Okay, yes. And the characters and the universe are what? The universe being Maya, being Ishvara, and the characters in Ishvara also being Ishvara. But none of that you did. That was all Ishvara. Okay? So you see, you were not responsible for it, were you? You didn't say, I think I'm going to create a dream, I'm going to murder someone. You didn't do that. It just popped up. So that's what we mean by self is not indirectly responsible for the one that does, or the doer. You understand? So what are you responsible for? Yeah. Okay, this also leads us to understanding that Satya and Mithya, they're completely different orders of reality. Okay? Now, yes, they are together, but they're completely different orders of reality. That's an important concept to understand. I explained it with the air, for example, the smell in the air. They're together, but they're completely different orders of reality. Keep that in mind. If enlightenment or moksha was of mithya, in other words, what changes, then there is no freedom. Why? Because by the time I realize who I am, and I'm all, celebrating 5 minutes later, that idea is no longer valid. You see? That's why enlightenment cannot be that which changes. Because then we're all screwed. We've got no hope. By the time we realize the truth, by the time I say I'm consciousness, 5 minutes later, since everything has evolved, that's what Mithya does, everything's changing, everything evolves, apparently. That 5 minutes earlier, enlightenment, that recognition of the nature of reality, of Satya, that's no longer valid, is it? Because it's changed. So it cannot be Mithya. Otherwise, every scripture, all of this is a complete waste of time. So what does that mean? It means that I, the word I, is that which never changes, the self. In other words, enlightenment is the same. There's no special enlightenment. Special enlightenment only exists in Mithya. All enlightenment is everyone's enlightened. It just simply means that I already am what I'm seeking, which is Brahman. There is only consciousness. There is only, so to speak, air everywhere. This idea that I'm not, it's like saying, well, I'm not breathing. Well, whether you believe that or not, you're still breathing air. So you can't get away from who you already are, Brahman. Understand? Okay, so the idea that you are incomplete and inadequate causes doership and willful action. So any idea or any motivation to approach something or to get involved in something or to fulfill a desire comes out of the idea that I am not already complete. So in order to feel complete, I have to perform a certain set of actions. Why? Because when I perform a certain set of actions, what happens is it removes a desire, which is just another thought, covering Satya, and so I experience pure reflected awareness, that is pure Sattva. So all joy that happens, including the joy when you attain something or get something, is just a removal of desire, and then the pure reflected consciousness is known. Therefore, Satya is pervasive in that moment. So that's where we get the joy from. So it says here, the idea that you are incomplete and inadequate causes doership and willful action. So that means as long as I think I'm incomplete and I'm not Brahman, I'm not already that, I will be motivated ongoingly to chase the world objects. That's just a natural expression of incompletion or lack of knowledge. You cannot help it. Because the only way to get that short glimpse of pure reflected awareness, original consciousness, is to remove the desire. And the only way to remove a desire is to get what you want. Yeah? That's why the teachings of getting what I want is so huge today in this world. Law of attraction and self-help. It's all about how to get what you want. So what they're really doing is they're just telling you, do this for 5 minutes until it comes back. Do this for a year with a relationship or whatever. We're not saying anything's bad here, but then it's going to come back. So the idea is not to keep chasing objects, because all you're doing is just temporarily removing desire until it naturally comes back, because Mithya is endless. So there's always going to be new stuff that covers it up.
So that's what I was asking about before. Isn't this still all things? Desire, that I'm coming here to try and
Yes, it is.
get freedom? Is this not still my desire covering up the true nature of the self?
Yeah, it is desire. It is desire, and it's a desire that is. Let's just say it's a good desire, because what other desire is there? And even once attained, or attained is nothing to attain, but once realized, guess what? You're probably going to still be doing this.
Well, this is where I've realised that this is all Mithya and
yeah.
But I'm thinking
It's all, see, you can't, because self-knowledge is a direct reflector of who you are. Okay? So is everything else. But self-knowledge is just, it's so direct that most of us in Vedanta, we just can't help but to keep reading and just out of just a genuine love for the truth.
Well, yes.
So it's an expression for what you see. You always pay attention to what you love. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about who you are. So your desire, your attention is on what? Knowledge about who you are, implying what? You love yourself. So if you put your attention elsewhere, you do that at what? Automatically, on the beginning stages, that means I'm neglecting myself because I'm putting and giving attention to that. That means I love that more than me. But everything is you. Because that's the final realization, that everything is you. So now I say this, but ultimately it doesn't matter if you put your attention here or put your attention on a leaf. It's all consciousness. So there's no difference. It's one and the same. And we're going to arrive to this absolute understanding as we progress through the teaching. Okay. Okay, so what is Maya? What is Maya? Maya is something that is neither real nor unreal. This is the next part of the teaching. We've been talking about two principles, real and unreal. But now we're saying that Maya is neither real nor it's unreal. Okay, so this is, we got to, how to understand this. That's why Maya is tricky. Okay. Maya is a power. Just like a dream. Remember, let's go back to the dream example. Is that dream real? Is the dream unreal? Yeah, it could be both. Depends on how you look at it. It's a power that is caused from the dreamer, even though the dreamer hasn't caused it. Because remember, the dreamer slept and the dream just appeared. The dreamer didn't say, I'm going to dream. It just came out. It just came out of the dreamer. So Maya just springs out of consciousness. And it's neither real nor unreal. So what does this mean? Okay. Maya is a potential. Look at it as a potential. A potential to create. That means it's not yet created. When it's created, we call that Ishvara. When it's in potential, we call that Maya. Okay? So, before the dream comes, it's called Maya. When the dream appears, it's called Ishvara. So, now we're switching topics here. We've been talking about Maya and Ishvara, interchanging them like they're one and the same, but now we're making a subtle distinction. We're saying that Maya, see that line up there? It's neither in this realm nor is it in that realm. It's sort of, you could say, in between. The closest we can say it's a power, which is, it's an uncaused power. Just like that dream. Nobody caused that dream. Even though the dreamer has the ability to dream, the dreamer hasn't caused the dream. So look at Maya as a power, as a potentiality. And when that potentiality is manifest, that becomes, as we know, the world, stars, planets, the birds, the light, the paper, and everything else in the universe. And then we call that Ishvara. Okay? Also in the Upanishads, you'll come across that they interchange between Ishvara and Maya. It actually doesn't matter which one it is. You could call Ishvara both Maya and Ishvara, or you can call Maya being Maya, that which is unmanifest, and Ishvara, that which is manifest. It actually doesn't matter. So we'll just simplify it as Ishvara and Mithya and Satya. Okay? Clear? Okay. So here's two examples how Maya creates this sense of separation. So Mithya, Satya is all pervasive. Okay? There is no place where Satya is, where consciousness is not. That means what? That means when I, referring to Satya, when I am over there, I am also here. When I am here, I'm also there. Well, that first of all just saves us a lot of time from attaining transcendental states, because the transcendental state is all about going elsewhere or attaining some higher state. Why bother if that state is also permeated by consciousness? Satya. So you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to experience samadhis or nirvikalpas or have these amazing experiences, because the understanding alone lets you know, well, it's just another experience generated by Mithya, and that which is consciousness is all pervasive, and I am that. So why do I need to go elsewhere if it's already, if consciousness is all pervasive? Okay? So let's go back to the beginning of this teaching. And I talked about the doer. And I said how we associate the I to the doer. In other words, the I is associated to the one that moves, because the doer is the mover. Like I am moving, I am saying, I am talking, I am eating. It's all movement. So how can that be true when consciousness, who you really are, is all pervasive? Does that not contradict? How can I move when I am all pervasive? Well, Maya makes it appear like that. How? Well, look at it this way. When you're walking, you say, I am moving, right? I am moving. How can that be when we just said consciousness is all pervasive? Through power of Maya. Okay, so what happens is there's a sense of change. Okay, so you're moving, so there's a form, Mithya is moving, okay? And from this point of view, from your point of view, your eyes, everything's changing, okay? So it appears like there's movement, because the tree's here, and then the tree's here, and then the tree's here, and then the tree's here, and so on. So it looks like I'm moving and the tree's passing, but what's happening is every moment there's a new form. So imagine like we put a pause on the world, and then we move, and then we play, and then we move and we play, and then we slow down the world, and we see these abrupt breaks in between. Okay, so everything's moving, changing form, because if I say that there is movement, I'm also implying what? Time and space. See, for things to move, you need space. And for space to be known, you need time. Okay? So that contradicts all pervasiveness. That contradicts the fact that consciousness never moves, but now it looks like I am moving. Well, the body's moving, but not you. Maya makes it appear like you're moving. And the second example is the location of objects. Okay, let's do this. Doesn't matter what object is here. By the way, I know we're not entirely on the same page. It takes several sessions because the mind's trying to grasp the idea. I'm doing the best to explain it in words. It takes several sessions to get this. It takes everyone a long time to understand, to negate the fact that it looks like I'm moving, but I'm not. Okay, let's use a second example. What am I holding here? An object. It doesn't matter what I'm holding. Where is this object? Is it in my hand or is it in you? Okay. How do you know that? Look at the object. How do you know this object, this remote, is in you? How do you know that? From your point of reference, where is the remote occurring right now? Where is the picture of the remote occurring?
In my awareness.
In your awareness. Okay, so we have light bouncing off the remote and it's entering your eyes, and then there's an inversion, and then it comes back to the visual cortex, the back of the brain, and then there's a correction. But so the remote is happening where you are now. It's not happening, it's happening where you are now. And also, light has to travel, let's not forget that, at 300,000 kilometers a second and reach you. So it...
Sorry, I have difficulty with this one, with your teaching of it actually happening in the brain,
right?
Where you have where you have the light reflecting. Because if there's no time and space or distance, well then it's actually the mind, the body is actually
That's right.
not even here anyway. So it's
because everything is in you.
Everything is in me, so it's just
a form that is changing. It's not moving, it's changing. Okay, that's what I meant earlier on. It appears like things are moving and the mouth is moving, the body is moving, but it's just changing. And because of you, consciousness, you are that because of which the changes are known, the apparent changes are known.
So it's sort of consciousness. So is it consciousness seeing, hearing, tasting?
The consciousness the consciousness in the form of Maya is seeing, hearing, tasting through the 5 sensory experiences through the gross body, and being felt, known in the subtle body. Okay, so all experiences are known in the subtle body, and the input of the sensory is entered through the gross body. And we're going to talk more in depth about the bottom, the prana, it's called the 5 sheaths, and to understand that. Okay, let's get back to the example. So I'm holding a remote, and we have now established that the remote is in you. And you have trouble understanding this, then just take a feeling. If you have a very nice feeling, is it happening, if you're making love, is the orgasm happening in them or is it happening in you? In you. Okay, you're the one that knows about the orgasm that the body is experiencing, not they, you know about that. So same with any sensory input, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a visual, auditory, a taste, it's all happening in you. Okay, so second question, how far away are you from that experience of this remote? This remote is in you. How far away are you, meaning you, what? Consciousness. How far are you, consciousness, away from this experience? Knowing now that it's in you. Not here, but in you.
By definition, you can't be away from it at all.
But you can't be. Okay, so that means what? Consciousness is non-separate from mithya. That's what we mean. They're inseparable. So what? If your consciousness, and this is appearing in you as consciousness, all there is consciousness. So what? This is also consciousness. So that's what we mean when we say everything is Brahman, everything is consciousness. It's appearing in you in a different form, as a remote, as a cloud, as a sun, as a feeling, as anything you can think of. Okay? So this is how Maya makes it appear like the remote is here, but if you actually investigate your reality, as we did, you actually notice, you just undisputable knowledge that it's actually in you. But Maya makes it appear, as long as it remains uninvestigated, like it's away. Similarly, Maya makes it appear like things are moving, but when you investigate, things are just changing. And the changes are happening where? In you. Just like this remote is happening in you. This remote is the same order of reality as anything else, including the movement. It's all mithya. So by me saying this remote, by you saying this remote is in you, you're also saying mithya is in you. So is change. So is movement. So is everything in you then. Okay?
So is it like the old-fashioned movies where they have one still image? This is just a concept in my mind.
Like what?
Like a still image, then another still image, another. You know how they have all the still images and then and they put them all together and it looks like it's moving?
Yeah, it's just moving so fast that it appears like a live performance.
So it's a one still form and then another still form and another.
If you slow down, if you could slow it down, it would appear like that. One, next. But it's happening so fast that to us it looks like there's just constant animation and everything's just moving, and this is the world. It's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah. So this is how Maya tricks us into thinking that everything's away and things are apart from me. But now we just did a little exercise and we, through the inquiry of it, realized that everything's happening in you. Because is this body now here or is it in you?
Reflection. Your image is a reflection in my mind.
Yes. So the reflection, whether you call it the reflection or remove the word reflection, either way, it's appearing in you.
So your body is also appearing in you.
Yeah. And how do we know that? So therefore, how do we know that the body cannot be you? How do we know that? What's one way to arrive to that?
Because you can see it.
Well, you see it, yeah. Because whatever you know about, you cannot be it. Do you know about your body? Do you know you have a body? So you can't be, because you, how can the knower and the known, how can the knower be the known? Then who is there to know the known if the known is the knower?
Too fast, I couldn't catch that.
You see, so there's only two things in existence. Subject and object. The knower and the known. The one that knows about this is the knower. This is the known. Okay, this body is the known from your point of reference, and you is the knower. From this point of reference, these bodies are the known and there is a knower. Now, the bodies are different, right? The objects are different, so the known is different, but what's the same? The knower. You see, is there some quality to the one that knows? Is my knowing different from your knowing? How can that be? Because if that was true, then I would see a cat here and you would see a remote control, because my knowing is different. Therefore, I wouldn't see this as remote control knowledge, since my knowing is contaminated by some subjective phenomena. So how can then we have a different, how is it that we all agree that this is a remote control or a tree, whatever it is? How is it that we all agree that it's the same object? Because we all have the same pure, clear, uncontaminated knower, non-separate from it, not as an ownership, but we are the knower. Okay, that's how we're able to see the same objects, because we all, nobody, unless you're on LSD or something, of course, but do you see what I'm getting at? So we all arrive to the same conclusion. We all say, well, this is flat. Nobody sees this as round. That means the knower is able to recognize the same known. Yeah, so different known, but same knower. Different objects, one subject. That I is the same I that you are, is the same I that I am. Understand? So that I, we're talking about Satya now, that which you are, consciousness, existence, awareness. That I, in the form of an object from this point of view, knows that object, and that same I from that point of view knows this object. It's the one I, different objects. Now, question. Where do the objects come from? Why is it that we have different objects? That's a fair question. Why is it that we have color? Why is it that, Ishwara didn't create black and white world? Why did Ishwara add color? Yeah, well, where does all this come from? I mean, we could function in a black and white world, no problem. I mean, you gotta love Ishwara, right? This is where the gratitude for Ishwara comes. Like, you gave us a really cool place here because we get to enjoy color. We could have got it much worse. But where does color come from? Where does form? Where do these differences come from? Why is one tree different from another tree? Why? Because the elements, the constituents of the elements are different. Now, what elements are we talking about? Space, air, fire, water, earth. Okay? These 5 elements, as we have at the bottom, space, air, fire, water, earth, they are the constituents for all creation. Now, you say, well, Andre, you don't look like, you don't look like water. Well, there is water in a body. There's 70% or whatever. And there is some earth. That's why it's sort of dense. Well, what about this? Well, it's pretty obvious. We have air, we have space. We have space everywhere, we have air. What about the earth? What about this? I mean, every object that you touch came from earth. The miners dug this up at some point. They extracted the different periodic table of elements out of the earth, and they created everything you see. So everything you see came out of some combination of earth, water, fire, space, and air. So different combination of that creates differences.
So all of that really is only Maya. The knower can only know the known because of Maya.
Yes. Yes. The idea, okay, the self is indifferent. This is the next part. The self is indifferent to good and bad karma. What does this mean? Well, the self is never contaminated. Anything that goes over this, nothing can go over this line, including karma. The self is pure. So here it's saying that consciousness is never contaminated by good karma or bad karma. So it doesn't actually matter if I'm a world savior or from a point of view of a jiva, it matters. But from a point of view of the self, there is no, karma doesn't touch me. So enlightenment simply means that because now I know that I'm not the jiva, I am now no longer under the influence of karma. You see how that works? That's why karma ends instantly. When you know that you are awareness, self exists, and you're totally convinced by it. Because now you know, you're not taking it personally anymore. You say, see, before in the ignorant state, it says, oh, I hurt this person, I stole money. Dude, you were innocent to it. You were innocent to you had no choice. If you knew any better, you would have done something, but you had no choice. So the self was never contaminated. It was just the jiva playing out its karma, playing out its action. And it was just in the self, the same I, was observing that. So the self is never contaminated. Otherwise, if it was, then if you do something bad, I would also get contaminated. Okay, so the self is ever pure, unaffected by karma. That's what it means.
So if you have full in realization of the self, and you're the light, which we all are, you just can observe. Is it likely that you would observe your jiva murdering someone? You know what I mean?
Right, like from top-down view, right?
Well,
No, yeah, that's not likely because see when you
some ways or
it's
bad
no,
behavior.
I would not say that's even possible, because knowing the truth, you still know that because now you know even more that the jiva has to play out its karma. Now the jiva can add karma onto it if it wants by doing stupid actions, but there's knowledge that no, why would I want that? Because I'm so beautiful, I'm so complete. Why would I have any motivation to act? So any action, whether positive or negative, is invalidated because moksha means completion. So it invalidates motivation for things like that. But what happens is there's still action. Okay? Now, where is that action coming from? Because we have self-realized ones who are still doing stupid things. Where is that coming from? That's called prarabdha karma. That means karma that is yet to play out. Okay, so an example of that is if I shoot and I release the arrow, it doesn't matter how much I think or don't think, that arrow is still going to go where it was meant to go at the time that I released the arrow. Okay, so if I release the arrow and I'm ignorant and then I realize, oh, I'm the self, everything's me, and then it kills a person, I'm still going to suffer the consequences based on that time. So that's called prarabdha karma. So there's still going to be an exhaustion of that karma till the last breath.
So once you is there any do you have any motivation to do anything other than to serve, I suppose, to serve the
Okay, yeah, sure. That question implies there's still a you there that's making the decision. See, there is no you. That you, that's the doer. And we talked in the beginning, the doer leaves because you understand that you don't do anything. You're not the one that's getting motivated. You're not the one that's you're not the one that's getting lazy. It's all Ishvara. Okay, according to what? Well, also according to your vasanas, but also according to your gunas. So if there's a tama guna that's predominating in the moment, there's going to be extreme laziness. If there's rajas guna for the enlightened one that's predominant, then there's going to be extreme motivation. But the question is, who is the one that's calling the shots? Who's causing that? Well, saying that it's Ishvara is true, but not entirely. Because now we said that karma, there's still karma, and karma is the anime. So it's not Ishvara as a daddy that's saying, well, you do this, you do that. It's just a reflection of your karma. So if you're, for example, you hug someone, you console them, you give them a good moment, then the reaction or the response of that is correlative to what has occurred from your side. But if you slap somebody, then the action from their side is still going to be correlative to what you have done. Okay, so, but who is the one that caused you to hug and to slap? That's the question, right? Yes, we know there was a hug, but who caused that? Well, we just say that the doer is negated. Who's making the shots? It's your karma and Ishvara intertwined because they're in the same orders of reality. You see? So the answer to your question is the question of motivation or that leaves. The question doesn't even come up because you understand it's Ishvara that's running the show, so to speak, anyway. So the question of motivation or what should I or what shouldn't I, that doesn't even arise, because you realize, well, I'm constantly an expression of the divinity, which is called Ishvara.
So it's just the body and mind is motivated at one time. The body and mind cannot be motivated at another time.
Yes,
Body
according to
and
the three
mind
gunas.
is just being done.
Yes, you could say it's being done. You're not doing. The summary of all of this is it's being done according to your vasanas. Vasanas means imprints, your habits, according to your karma and according to the three gunas. Now, you don't control your vasanas, you don't control your gunas, and you don't control your prarabdha karma. Because
the causal body doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, that's all the causal body. You see the causal body there? The causal body means it causes everything. But you're not, see the jiva is not in the realm of the causal. They're sort of separate. You can see there's a line in between. So the causal, the vasanas, they spill and they cause the jiva to do stupid things or smart things. The sattva, rajas and tamas are permeative in all creation, and they cause certain qualities like peaceful weather, windy, that's rajas of course, or just dark and murky, that's tamas of course. So, and who's controlling that? Certainly not the jivas. We don't go and pray, oh, we want rain today, do we? What do we control here? Nothing. That which is what is because of Ishvara, inclusive of the causal body and the three gunas. You see, so that's why the conclusion, that the ultimate conclusion that we're arriving to is you don't control anything. You don't, and there isn't, okay, and this leads us to free will later on.
Yeah, I was just gonna get to
Okay.
the free will, because it spills over and then
Yeah.
make a choice, then it goes back to...
Yeah, you see? You're not saying, I want some more sattva, give me some rajas. You're just a total, so to speak, victim to that which is in the moment. So you're not choosing, are you? You're not choosing how to feel. You're not choosing how to think or when to think.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the body and mind now?
I'm talking about the jiva, which is the body and the mind. Yeah. So you see how, so now we're getting to invalidating this principle of free will. Before we say you have free will as long as you think you're a jiva. But after the teaching, we destroy the idea of free will. Now, this doesn't mean act stupidly, because you know the consequences of that. You can't act stupidly. If I act stupidly, I'm still going to have to pay karma back, and I'll feel bad. My mind's going to be noisy, and I won't be able to do what I do, and then the whole show's over.
Yeah, because then you have to think, oh, okay, well, I don't know, I have no choice.
Yeah.
Then you're choosing not to choose, and it's, you know, it's...
Yeah, but see, that's another thought, right?
Yeah.
So you got to dismiss that thought also and realize, well, this also Ishvara. Yeah. Okay, because self-knowledge, what does self-knowledge mean? What is self-knowledge?
Know the difference between sati and mitya?
Yes, summary. I know the difference between what is real and unreal, between satya and mitya.
Can I just ask, sorry, a quick question? So when you say, really, from the jiva's point of view, there's no control, there's no free will. From the self's
No. From the jiva's point of view, there is free will.
Control, yes.
From Ishvara's point of view, there is absolutely no free will.
From Ishvara or from the self?
The self has no. The self. See, none of this has anything to do with the self.
So from the self, from Ishvara 1.
This is Ishvara 2. Ishvara 2. From Ishvara 2, Mitya, from Mitya's point of view, there is no free will. The self has nothing to do with any of that.
It doesn't care about free will.
It doesn't even have the concept of free will or no free will. It's just aware of its own power, just like the dreamer is aware of the dream, even though it's not even responsible. Like, where is this coming from?
So, from the jiva's point of view, there is free will.
From an ignorant jiva's point of view. You're still a jiva, remember? Enlightened or not,
that's
the jiva
it.
continues. The body and the mind still there. The knowledge, the self-knowledge that we talk about, which discovered by ignorance, when it destroys these concepts of free will and I'm in control and I'm responsible, then it still remains a jiva. You could just call it an educated jiva. Yeah, so that's all we're doing. We're re-educating the jiva here. The jiva, I mean by your body and your mind. Because self-knowledge is covered by ignorance, ignorance meaning what? Mithya, that's ignorance. Mithya is ignorance, duality. You take yourself, who's the you? Who's the you that takes itself? Yeah, the jiva. You take yourself to be a doer. So in the stage of ignorance for worldly people, this is generally speaking, because ignorance is by default, there's satya and mithya, they're intermixed. Because mithya is by default, anything born is ignorant. Okay, even a baby that is born is just more sattvic. That's why it appears so calm. It doesn't mean that it's enlightened. It's also ignorant. So self-knowledge is covered by ignorance, but when we acquire self-knowledge, it destroys self-ignorance. So what are we doing here? We're acquiring self-knowledge. That's why you do need desire for moksha. Otherwise, if you don't have desire, how are you even going to show up to acquire self-knowledge? Yeah.
So really, you need to acquire self-knowledge to access
Yes.
the unknown.
Yes, to know you. You're not unknown. You know yourself. Yes.
The self,
which is you.
Supposed to be it's like it's the unknown.
No, the unknown. It comes from uninvestigated, just myths. They call it's it's a mystery. Yes, it is God is a mystery, but we don't know what they're talking about. Are they talking about? Are they even aware of satya? Are they talking about mithya? Most cases they're talking about mithya. Unknown, if you hear in these spiritual circles, means uninvestigated, and I just haven't got the knowledge that we're learning about now. So there's not much that's unknown here, by the way. When you figure out Maya and awareness, there's very little that remains unknown. I say that because only Ishvara knows everything, and Jiva doesn't know everything. Okay, so you'll probably encounter these gurus, I've seen them, and people look at them and they assume because they're enlightened, they're supposed to know everything. And they do know a lot, but it has nothing to do with their moksha. It's just knowledge. It's just common knowledge that we're learning here now. They've just been teaching it for a while and they appear very smart. So are we clear on that? So there is no unknown. Are you aware of yourself now? Are you aware? You see, so you know yourself. It's simple as that. That's why they call it. It's so simple that the mind completely misses it. Like, what is there to know by asking you, do you exist? Do you have a sense of general existence right now? Yes? Yeah? That's it. That's it. That's awareness. That's satya. It's that simple. Right. Just as the sun reveals objects previously hidden in darkness, self-knowledge destroys self-ignorance and reveals the self to be limitless and complete, which is you. When the intellect is aware of the limitless nature, see that? I, intellect. Mind, intellect, ego. Mind is emotions. Intellect is the capacity to inquire, to discriminate, satya and mithya. So this discrimination that happens in your intellect.
Is that the same as thinking?
Thinking is a combination of the three, because thinking induces action, which is ego. It has an emotion attached to it, which is the mind, and the intellect, which is a sense of intelligence that causes it to go to through a certain direction or a certain path. Okay, so enlightenment happens in the intellect. That's why we say you need a sharp mind. If one's dull, they very hard to get this, nearly impossible. So you need to have a sharp mind. So when the intellect is aware of the limitless nature of the self and is solely committed to self-realization, its impurities are eventually destroyed. What impurities are we talking about? This goes back to your question, could an enlightened person do something stupid? The answer is maybe yes, but in most cases it's no. Because to come to that stage, one needs a very pure, undisturbed mind. And you're not going to have a pure mind if I'm swearing, if I'm sleeping around, if I'm watching porn, if I'm doing all these things. I'm not going to have a peaceful mind. So it's very likely, almost guaranteed, that they've done a lot of sadhana. Because why? You need a peaceful, this is why we have karma yoga. You need a peaceful mind to settle down these erratic, rajasic emotions and this noisy mind, so that this understanding can occur in the intellect. Can you think when you're emotionally disturbed? No way. Can you think when you're thinking about a fight last night? No way. You see how the mind needs to come down to have an intellect that's entirely focused to self-inquiry. Yes?
Yeah. Like in many situations, like circumstances can make your mind noisy as well. Like regardless of the things that you're saying, if you're like sleeping around or watching porn, people, is that really something that's bad if it's not hurting someone?
No, we're not saying anything's bad or good. They need to play that out because it's their karma. You see, I need to rape somebody so I can work out my karma. I need to hug somebody or say sorry to somebody to work out my karma. That's why there is nothing bad or good here. It's just, it needs to be for them to move on.
And the thing about you're trying to calm your mind, like the noisy mind, other circumstances can induce a noisy mind, and it's up to other circumstances, like circumstances out of your control can induce a noisy mind. Like,
yeah,
for example, if you lose something and it's something really shocking or whatever it is, it can induce a noisy mind. And after that, I guess it falls on you if you can.
Okay, depends. Yeah, depends if you have a sattvic mind. A rajasic, tamasic mind is this symbol is like this small. So whatever happens, it doesn't have a lot of space to sort of, a lot of things are happening in such a small space, a lot of activity. A sattvic mind is like this. So any disturbance is just, it's hardly even noticed. It's just like, it's like a little blip, like boop, nothing happened. That's why we recommend karma yoga. You need a peaceful, sattvic, calm mind because it expands the mind and therefore the world just doesn't disturb you anymore. Yeah, you see, so this is that sadhana where it has to be performed every day. So this is not just about gaining knowledge, it's also about simultaneously doing your practice, your meditation, which we will get into deeply, and whatever calms the mind down, not getting into arguments, diffusing potential confrontations. All these things, they count, because all these things, they leave a trace in the mind, especially a mind in a worldly, busy corporate world. There's minds like this small, so a lot of activity happens there.
What about even just noisy places and
it doesn't matter. It completely doesn't bother a sattvic mind. Whether one's at a bus station or at home, it actually makes no difference. Yeah.
If you have such a really pure sattvic mind, do you have difficulty sleeping then?
A what?
Do you have difficulty sleeping with a really sattvic mind?
Sleeping?
Yeah.
Well, sleeping...
because that requires tamas.
Yeah, but tamas... Well, tamas Yeah, but doesn't matter. Sleeping is a function of for the human body to restore and rejuvenate.
So you don't, someone with a really sattvic mind doesn't have difficulty sleeping?
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, it's a balance. I mean, we know that meditators, they spend very little time sleeping because they got so much sattva. So actually a lot of people in the spiritual world, especially women, they have a hard time sleeping when they start to, just get all, high up and angelic and sattvic and all that. So you still need to manage your gunas. Yeah. But generally a sattvic mind equals zero. I can just say from my experience, nearly zero disturbance. It doesn't matter whether it's extremely loud noise or quiet. It's just no difference. Yeah, and that's practice. Knowledge is not going to come, or it will come, but it's not going to be assimilated or stay long enough for it to be assimilated unless you keep your mind calm and tranquil and sattvic. That's a primary qualification, by the way, for moksha. Nobody talks about the qualifications. Well, we're telling you one right now. The qualification for moksha is a peaceful, sattvic, pure, calm, undisturbed, tranquil mind. Yeah. And that requires sadhana. And that sadhana we call karma yoga, which I've been talking about for a long time now.
So that letting go of it, so the desire for moksha,
yeah.
Back on this again, the desire for moksha, unless you let go of the results,
yes,
and just say, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't,
that's right.
That is going to create a non-sattvic mind.
That's correct. That's correct. Because every time I am attached or expect a certain outcome, if it's hardly ever going to occur how I want it, right? That's our experience in life. It's going to create like, I didn't get what I want. Are you going to inquire under the influence of that emotion, which has residuals for the next week in such subtle ways that we don't even notice, but it does nevertheless? No way.
Hard is when you subconsciously attach or expect, and so subconsciously doing things like I will think that try to be aware, but then something comes out and you subconsciously like expect, and subconsciously have those fears coming up.
And how do you deal?
These are coming up.
Okay.
Like I'm aware that these are coming up, and I'm not ready. It's just popping up, just new things.
Okay. And how do you deal with these subconscious occurrences?
Just bringing awareness to it.
Yeah.
And
that's it. There's not much you can else do. Because if you try to fix it, you know what you're saying? It's real, and you're reinforcing the illusion. This is where it contradicts the spiritual, the self-help world. They apply these techniques onto something that is not real, onto mithya. That's why we say, witness it, observe it, but don't touch it. Because you are consciousness. This is mithya. There are different realms entirely. Okay. When the intellect is aware of the limitless nature of the self and solemnly committed to self-realization, its impurities are eventually destroyed by self-knowledge, and you will no longer be troubled by self-limiting thoughts. Like, I am not enough, I should, I am not good, rich, tall, short, this, that. All these thoughts are linked to the sense of doer. Because as long as there is a doer, there's an association to the body, and I promise your body is never perfect. There's going to be this feeling small, because the body is small. Like if a person jumps off, they're dead, and they can only think so much. They can only concentrate for so long. They can only have a conversation for so long. They can only make people laugh so much. And all these things are limiting. There's always more when it comes to a jiva. So you cannot rely on a jiva, because then it's just the constant moreness to life, and there's just no freedom in moreness, is there? Yeah. So this is that danger of just relying on the worldly experiences and attending to the body as if it's so important. We're not saying don't attend. We're just saying take care of yourself, take care of the world, but just realize it's just me, it's not me. When this body dies, no, I don't take it with me. I stay, but the body goes.
So I've witnessed myself, even if negative things do come up, I then witness myself taking the identification of I'm awareness, I'm full, I'm complete, but I know that's the jiva
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, okay, now that's good. Okay, see, you got it, it's called taking a stand in awareness. Okay, so you got no choice because the mind's been saying, I'm incomplete, I'm empty, I'm undesirable, I'm unattractive, I am not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm insufficient. So you might as well just take a stand in awareness and say, I am already whole, I am already complete, I am full, I am consciousness, I am awareness, I am existence. That's your sadhana. You see?
Even though you know that is mithya.
Even though you know that's mithya. And even after enlightenment, that's still going to probably continue for most. Because there's, as I said, nididhyasana, there's still childhood conditioning and still not feeling loved and still having parents' issues and all these things that are hardwired in our brains. So the journey doesn't actually end after enlightenment. It only begins. You see? We can have miserable enlightened people because they haven't worked on themselves. And I'm not going to give names, but we have a lot of swamis who attain the supreme understanding, the supreme reality, which is what we've been explaining. But then they sleep around with their devotees. They do something stupid. They drive 50, 60 Rolls Royces. You know, where is this coming from? It's still coming from an unresolved little child called I want. And that little child has to be re-educated. So the journey doesn't end when you realize, oh, okay, that's all there is. I'm awareness, let's go home. It's not like that, even though a lot of us think it's like that. That's why we have the next, 40 pages? 40 more pages of learning. We have bhakti, we have stages of enlightenment. So we've got to cover all this to get the whole picture. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to go on to 11, which is the self-realized person. These are the attributes or the qualities of a self-realized person. The purpose of this is when you have an accurate description, then you know that you're on the right path.
What time tomorrow?
10 to 12.
10 to 12.
And Stella said ends tonight. Stella said ends tonight.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, be careful of the clock.
Of the what?
Of the time.
The daylight savings ends tonight.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
It's back 1 hour, isn't it?
Okay. Tomorrow we can also revise Maya because I know I can feel that it wasn't entirely gotten. It's a complex, but we're going to now be getting onto Maya. And we have to understand Maya because the key to permanent satisfaction, which is nididhyasana, is understanding Maya.
So really my understanding is just that it's potential power.
Potential power, that's it. Summary. Maya is potential power. It's not manifested yet, it's in potential.
So the self is unmanifest. Maya
No, not the self. Self is neither manifest nor unmanifest. Okay? Self has no attributes at all. Consciousness is just consciousness.
So what's the unmanifest bit? Is it Isvara? I don't know.
Unmanifest is Maya. It's not, before the Big Bang came, let's say, that Big Bang was in potential. Now, what gave that the potential to some power? Maya. Once it produced the creation, we call that the great intelligence, the Parameshvaraha, the Ishvara, the Lord, God, the divinity, this, cockroach, leaf, everything. Yeah.
So Maya is the formless. So it's not even the causal body.
Yeah,
Formless. What is it? Causal body formless?
There is causal body for every individual, every jiva. There's also a macrocosm causal body. There's a microcosm and a macrocosm. See, there's a lot more than we just went through, so we have to go through all of this. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukhabhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all behold good things, may no one suffer.